Are your wrists holding you back from having a strong handstand? Now, there's two things that I see all the time, and one is actually a lack of range of motion of the wrist. And people don't always realize that they have this because they can get into the positions they need to by compensating with other parts of their body. Okay, the other thing I see often is people with very flexible wrists, but no strength in the position that they need for their handstand. So today I'm going to show you an assessment that you can do to see if your wrists are holding you back. And then I'll show you a couple exercises that you can use to really help take your handstands to the next level. So let's start with the assessment. If you want to do a handstand, you want to be making sure that you're able to get your wrists to at least a 90-degree angle. Now, there's some caveats with this. A lot of people will lean forward and think they have that 90-degree angle because their shoulders are way over here. But what they don't realize is the heel of their hand is lifting off the floor. Now, if the heel of your hand is lifting off the floor when you're balancing, you're just balancing on that front part of your hand and it's not going to be very stable. It's like standing on your toes versus standing on your whole foot. So you want to make sure you're keeping that good contact with the floor, both the heel of your hand down, okay, on the thumb side and the other side, as well as that knuckle area where your calluses are. So the first thing to do is set up and really feel that contact with the floor. Press the heel of your hands down, press your knuckles down into the floor. The next very common thing I see is that as people lean forward, they lose that scapula stability. So they lean forward, they're getting pretty far, but you notice there's no change in the angle of my wrists here. All that's happening is that I'm sacrificing my shoulder position in order to get myself further forward. So what we want to make sure we're doing is we have that full contact with the floor, we're pushing down, and you're maintaining that shoulder position. So I'm maintaining strong shoulder position and then leaning forward, making sure that that lean is coming from a change in the angle at my wrists. And this way we can really assess true wrist range of motion. Now, if you're not able to comfortably get in a position where you're at least at 90 degrees, if not a little bit less than 90-degree angle here, okay, then we need to work on your mobility. And I'll show you an exercise for that in 1 second. The other thing is when people are super flexible, but they struggle to actually hold themselves in this position because they don't have the strength. So if that's you, if you're very flexible in the wrists, but you actually just feel like you don't really have control through here, then I'm going to show you guys an exercise to really help strengthen this 90-degree position. So this first exercise that I'm going to show you is a wrist extension exercise. And it's a wrist extension, pails and rails. And for those who are interested, that is from FRC, Functional Range Conditioning. So we're going to set up with your hands on the floor, index finger pointing forward, hands shoulder width apart. Okay, we want to set up in the position we're going to use for a handstand. We want to make sure we have that good contact with the floor, heel of the hand pressed down, that knuckle area pressed into the floor. You're going to gently push down, gently rotate your hands slightly out the way as if you're trying to unscrew pickle jars, and you'll feel that come all the way up into your shoulders. And then you're going to gently lean forward. And you want to find a position where you're feeling a little bit of a stretch, but you know you can hold this position for a while because we're going to be holding this position for 1 to 2 minutes. So we get in this position, we feel that nice stretch up here, and maybe a little bit of work happening on this front side of your forearm and hand. And we just hold this for our given time, 1 to 2 minutes. After that time, you're going to now perform some work in this position. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press down into the floor. So you're pushing down with your fingers almost as if you're trying to straighten out your wrist. So we're holding this position, pressing down with our hands into the floor. And so it's an isometric contraction, which means we don't actually move. We just push down into the floor. So we do that for 10 seconds. And then we slowly release that. And then we try and do the opposite. So I'm actually now I'm trying to lift my hand off the floor. Okay, actively engage these muscles and these muscles to lift my hands off the floor. And most of you are not going to that hand's not going to move, right? But it's that intention and contracting these muscles here. You might feel like they're about to cramp in this position. So we do that for 10 seconds. And then we slowly release that contraction and we repeat. So we push down for another 10 seconds. I'm pushing my fingers and hands into the floor. I relax and I try and lift my hands off the floor for 10 seconds, really working all those muscles in my forearm and hand. So at the end of that 10 seconds, I slowly release that contraction, push down, make sure I have that good setup again with my heel pressed into the floor, my knuckles pressed into the floor, my good shoulder position, and then I can lean slightly further into the stretch. And again, we now hold in that position for 1 to 2 minutes. Spending time in the position is really important for making those lasting changes, and doing that work, that active work in the position, is really important for building strength and usable range of motion. Okay, so this exercise is my go-to exercise for really improving the range of motion that you have in the wrist, so that you're able to get into the position that you need to for your handstand. For those of you who have good range of motion at the wrist, but maybe lack some of that strength and find it hard to stabilize when you're upside down, the exercise that I'm going to give you guys is finger push-ups. Now, this is also a great exercise for those who lack the range of motion. Okay, you can start building strength at the same time, but this is especially important if you don't have that strength and stability in the position. So for this exercise, again, you're going to set up with that same hand position. And I think I've not said this enough, but we're going to have the heel of the hand pressed into the floor, the knuckles pressed into the floor. Okay, you're going to push down, get that good shoulder position, gently screw your hands as if you're unscrewing those pickle jars. So push down, gently screw your hands into the floor. We've got that good shoulder position. From here, all right, you're going to create some tension here, nice strong position, and we're going to press down with our knuckles into the floor. So I'm pressing down and I'm coming up to this position. Now, the important thing as you come up to this position is this knuckle stays down. It's likely that the knuckle on your pinky is going to lift up slightly and your thumb's not doing a lot. Okay, so it's really that knuckle on the index and middle fingers. These ones are going to be pressing into the floor. So we press up and we slowly lower down. So I like to go for a count of 3 up, 3 down. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3 down. Now I'm showing a variation that is not the most beginner variation. So what I should have been showing initially is hands next to the knees. So if your hands are here, a little less of your weight is on your hands, a little more is on your knees, and then you can push up 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and do reps, sets of about 10 reps. You would want to do this maybe at the end of your handstand practice or in a completely separate practice. If you do this before your handstand practice, you're just going to really tire out your wrists before you get started. So you can start here, progress to this position, slowly move it out, and eventually, once you've built up a lot of strength, you can do this in a full plank position. With a count of 3 up and the count of 3 down. And so those are my 2 top exercises for really building the wrists that you need for a strong, stable handstand.